Hey, it's Dan. Before we begin, I want to let you know that there's only a handful of episodes of the Jockey Club left. With that said, before this is all over, I would love to hear from you, members of the Let It Ride faithful. Hear your thoughts and opinions on the movie or anything else that's been said on this series, and if I get enough emails, I'll make a special episode and read your thoughts. If you've already sent me an email, it's probably going to be included. So if that sounds good to you, then send an email to dan@moviemaker.com. Okay, now let's do the show. Welcome to the Jockey Club, a podcast looking at the movie Let It Ride, one scene at a time. My name is Dan Delgado, and we're at historic Hialeah Park where one man is having the best day of his life.
I'm having a good day.
So come on in and hang out while we talk about this day and the greatest movie of all time, Let It Ride. Don't worry about that guy at the door. I've got you covered. You can even
take my seat to the Jockey Club.
Welcome to the Jockey Club. My name is Dan Delgado. We are up to episode 29, which means we are doing the 29th scene of Let It Ride. And really, yes, it is the 29th scene according to me. This is a scene where Trotter decides which horse to make his final bet on. And with me to discuss this scene is Steve Bick. Steve is the longtime host of the Sirius XM radio program At the Races. And a few weeks ago on his show, and we spent an hour discussing Let It Ride, the Jockey Club, and movies in general. Odds are a good number of you out there who are listening right now first heard about this podcast from my appearance on his show. So I thought I should return the favor, well, in a way, and invite Steve up to my usual table to discuss a scene, and he was more than happy to do so. And if you're playing along at home, this is from minute 110:49 to 113:43. And if you're playing along at home, this is from minute 116:14 to 117:36. So now, let's head on up to my usual table at the Jockey Club to discuss the importance of celebrating your wins and the 29th scene of Let It Ride. Now, as always, Steve, I need to know about your first time seeing Let It Ride, and also what was your initial reaction then, and has that changed over time? Do you look at it differently now than when you first saw it?
That's an interesting question. I did not see it until I was well established as a horse player and as a fan of the game, and I might even venture to say not until I think when I started my website, Derby Trail, and discussion of it. I was aware of it.
Right.
And like we talked on radio, actually, about this a little bit. I was aware of it, but I hadn't sought it out. And then when the opportunity started to arise to see it, on cable or to pull it up digitally, or I may have even gone. It was still in the era when you could go, get a tape.
Yeah.
Go rent a tape, and I may have done that around I'm going to guess around 2007, 2008, in that range.
Oh wow! So that late? Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I may have let the reviews affect me and my interest in it, but I suppose getting to know Cronley and just being around the horse player milieu,
right,
sort of tripped the interest that I got to see this. I how have I not seen Let It Ride?
All right, and so you go ahead and you get your old VHS and you pop it in, or whatever it is that you did. And so what did you think in 2008, 7, whenever?
Well, the initial reaction of everybody is the same. It's like, oh my God, I'm in love with Jennifer Tilly, and how that she dominates any early viewings of it. I mean, and of course, by the time I saw it, she had become this sensation on the poker circuit as well, and so No, I found it incredibly charming and humorous, obviously, and it had, it had a Caddyshack meets Seabiscuit feel. Uh,
That's good.
and so no, I enjoyed it, and then it's one of those movies that when it turns up on cable, you whether you see the last 20 minutes, whether you see the first half hour, it's one of those pictures you then see subsequently in bits and pieces, and whatever portion you get, you enjoy it absolutely. And I think I told you that I had seen even chunks of it and had not seen it straight through until whatever point it was that I did sit and take it all in, from start to finish. And it's not like it's it's not Dr. Zhivago. It's 90 minutes.
It's a brisk 90 minutes, baby.
Yes.
That's right.
Except for you, who has managed to stretch it out into months and years.
Oh my God, that's exactly right. Yeah, no, I've turned it into 10 Dr. Zhivagos is what I've done. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah. So now,
it's tree of life.
I don't know that Tree of Life is as long as it is, or if it feels as long as it is. I'm not exactly sure. Don't want to upset the Terrence Malick fans out there listening, but you mentioned a relationship or a friendship or something with Jay Cronley. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
And just in the same way that my exposure in press boxes and the awareness of the radio show and just getting to know people like him and Jay Hubdy and Bill Barish and John Parada, who's intrinsically involved in the show, but the whole group that did Luck, for instance, just by being in racing in racing media and as the show's awareness grew. So I mean, I did not, I didn't have a special, I couldn't text them, but certainly, and I thought about this after you and I spoke earlier in the year, and I can't remember if he was on the show or not. And I wish I had a master index of everybody that's been on. I mean, we've been doing the show 17 years, and I've had all walks of life, and I have an inkling that he was, but I can't pin it down.
Yeah, so I interviewed him twice, right? And I tried to interview him a third time, and I would have just kept talking to him if I could, right? So I had him on the first time, and he was actually the first person I ever interviewed for anything. It was in 2006, and then I talked to him again, I think, a year or two later, right? And then maybe 6 months, a year later, I'm trying to get him back on, and he's just, I'm busy, Dan. He would agree. Actually, this is what would happen, and I haven't talked about this, but he agreed to come back at least 3 times, and then backed out at the last minute for some reason. Oh, you know what? One time, the writer strike was going on, and I remember this very well. He told me, I've got to go and vote in a meeting in California. So I'm sorry. Now I don't know if all his reasonings were legit or he was just like, I've had enough of this guy who won't leave me alone about Let It Ride. I'm not sure. But I just couldn't get him back on a third time.
Well, I can sympathize with that, because I've been on the asking end. I'm trying to think of a parallel to somebody that I've harassed or that I haven't been able to get on the show. Andy Serling this week actually told me, he asked me, he said, have you had MC Hammer on, who had a very prominent, for a stretch, had some very nice horses. And I said, you know what? I haven't had Hammer on. And so now I've got to go out and get Hammer. And maybe that'll be everybody's got a white whale, right? In this genre.
Absolutely. Oh, I have several. I think you end up getting like a stable of whales, really, as you go on. All right, so you ready to dive into this scene? It's a short one, but I think we can handle it.
It's actually, and you can, I'm sure you'll set it up, but I will say this: it feels like an important pivotal minute in the scheme of things.
Yeah, I would say so. It really is. It really is. This is where we're gonna pick our last horse. This is where that final bit of inspiration. I think this may be the last time that we hear the chimes of destiny pop up in the film, right? Okay, so this is very simple. So you've got Trotter and Vicky. They're sitting at the stables, and Looney walks up and asks, "What are you going to do?" And Vicky lets him know what he's not going to do,
which figures in, and I'm glad you mentioned that, and because obviously the scene right before that is Vicky propositioning essentially Trotter, and him absolutely, flatly turning her down, and professing his love, and speaking for all of us, love for Terry Garr, and which everyone has, and. That's why I think it's a pivotal scene, what transpires from that point, because he's a different, all drama is about, central character changing, and he is fully changed at this point, right? I mean, he's a better husband, he's a better person, he's happier with himself. I mean, everything that goes into the very good day has distilled down to this moment, and the ability to know to ignore the advice, quote unquote, of the peanut gallery that he hangs out with at the track, and Looney especially, and it's really to me a point where everything coalesces, and the last 15 minutes of the film from that point is just this sort of dream sequence, almost a coda. And for that reason, even though it is, 70 seconds, it's really the point that you could almost start rolling the credits.
Yeah, but as you're watching this for the first time, do you think he's going to win that last race?
Oh, yeah. There's never a doubt that he's going to win, because he convinces you of that, because he's convinced. And yes, there's the comical few moments here and there where what if he loses? But then he says when she joins him, and even when he's walking with, I'm going to forget his name, with the guard, and just essentially summarizing what a great, wonderful day it's been, no matter win or lose.
Yes,
I mean, there's just this certain satisfaction and contentment, and that's a feeling that is 100% drawn from racetrack experience and from horse player ups and downs. And there's days that you absolutely, what he is relaying to the audience is distilled 100% from how you feel after a good day. And even if you just come out slightly ahead, slightly behind, or it doesn't even matter, because you've had all of these wonderful moments along the way that makes coming to the racetrack so pleasurable. And winning the last play on Hot to Trot, that's gravy or whatever,
yes,
whipped cream on the sundae.
All right, now I agree with everything that you said, but I was convinced he was going to lose that last race. I was convinced that all of these other things were going to be the real victory of the day, right? Like all of the friendships that he had made and how he has reconciled with his wife and all of these other things that had gone well for him. But I always find it to be very subversive that they let the gambler win in the end. Because gambling movies, a lot of times, we can't let that vice go unpunished. What's wrong with you? But Let It Ride does. Well,
and for a good reason, because people do win. People win.
It does happen.
People win. That's one of the beauties of the racetrack versus so many other forms of gambling. You're the pari-mutuel. You're betting against everybody else. It's your opinion, and it's your confidence in your own opinion. And for that reason, absolutely, he can win this last play and go home, even happier than you could have imagined. I mean, he does so many. There's so many little things. The diamond necklace. There's so many little things that are drawn from actual experience. And I'll relay a funny individual story that a lot of people probably have heard from me, which was the summer of 1990 at Saratoga, and being excited to go see Go for Wand in the Alabama. And she was going to win no matter what. But I was with a girlfriend, and we were there from the first race. And I rarely bet a daily double. At least back then, I rarely bet a double. But I bet a double. And the double hits for $80. And I think I had it 2.5 times. So I'm up a couple of $100. And the girlfriend, she wanted to go to the shoe depot downtown in Saratoga. And I said, all right, I'm up a few hundred. Let's walk downtown. We'll go to the shoe depot and we'll get you something, while I'm ahead and all that. And instead, she runs into a friend from Cortland State. And so now it's a couple of minutes to post for the third race.
Okay.
She's talking to her. Yeah, she's talking to a friend. I said, all right, let me bet this race.
Uh-huh.
So I'm looking at the form. It's a 9-horse race. I find this horse, the 7-horse, named Balinar. It's a big price. It's like 14, 15, 16 to 1.
Oh.
All right. So I'm going to bet this horse. And I wheel the horse with 4 horses. And they were all the odd 1, 3, 5, and 9 with the 7. So that's $16, the $2 exacta, each way, keyed front and back. And now I'm watching the race. And this horse is out in front 6-8 lengths and turning for home. And it was back when they only had the numbers, 1990.
Okay.
So there it is. 7, 1, 5, 3. I'm like, this is unbelievable. I've got a 16 to 1 shot that's going to win this race. And one of the other ones is going to be behind. I'm going to hit this exacta and it's going to be a bonanza.
Okay.
We turn for home, and now I see something as they pan the camera around the turn. I see something is moving, and it happens to be the 9-horse. And at the time, I didn't know it was the 9-horse, but now we're in a stretch duel, and it's the 7 and it's the 9, and there had been an older guy next to me who took an interest. What do you got? I got the 7 with the 1, 3, 5, 9, and so he's watching. So we're watching. He's going, oh my God, they're down the stretch, and they hit the wire together, and he says, you got it. You got it. So what do you mean? He says, you got it. It's the 9. It's the 9 and the 7, or the 7 and the 9. The boy got it. It's a 27 to 1 shot. 27 to 1 shot. The 2 longest shots on the board.
All right. Tell me.
Unbelievable. Keynote speaker in Balinar. And it's $721 exacta.
710!
And I'm like, stunned at this, and I go to cash the ticket, and the machine, makes that noise, chunk, 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 chunk. It's like, what's going on? The guy said, "Oh, I can't cash this. This is an IRS ticket." So what does that mean?
Yeah,
I have no idea. It's my first IRS ticket. So we're there for an hour, not even an hour.
Oh wow!
And I'm up $1,000. Actually, I only got 500 and change after the IRS took their 24%, and I still got like 500. And I still have all the paperwork. I mean, 35 years later, whatever it is. But we went downtown, and I got her shoes and a pair of boots. When we came back, we watched Go for Wand. But the point is, the diamond necklace, when you win, that's something you do. You go and either you buy your wife, your girlfriend, or both, you buy them
something.
A memento, exactly. Or you buy something that you're going to have forever. It can be a racetrack thing. It could be everybody, those horseshoe rings. Get yourself a horseshoe ring. Get something that is a permanent remembrance. So that thing with the diamond necklace, there's just one thing after another in Let It Ride that absolutely rings 100% true, and that's one of the virtues of the film.
Yeah. So even if he loses that last race, even if it all goes away, he'll be able to point back to that necklace that his wife is still wearing with a big smile on her face, and he'll say, yeah, you know what? That was my day at the track. That's where that came from.
Exactly. My very good day. Exactly right. That, to me, it's really, that's an entree to the film's ending. And from there, it's all just, it's all great. It's just, it's actually even a review. So many of the other characters, you get a moment.
Yes.
To the Robbie Coltrane reprise there at the end as well, and going to the counting room. This comes after the scene we're talking about, but I don't know if have you mentioned this yet? The scene in the counting room.
No, I think I'm doing that one tomorrow. So go ahead. Well, we can talk about it. It's fine. It's everyone has seen the movie who's listening to this podcast. There's no secrets.
Well, the pan through the room and the crying Arab sheik.
Yes,
the Arab sheik is sobbing as they take however many hundreds of thousands. That's just a great little sight gag.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's funny. There's not a lot of just like throwaway sight gags like that in the movie, but like that one, it just jumps out at you. It's like, oh, that guy is not having a very good day.
No, exactly. Well, that's the money, flowing from one side, toward Trotter. That's part of what makes the game so appealing.
Oh, that's true. So yeah, maybe what that guy lost is, $500,000 that Trotter will be going home with. That very well.
That's right, because
true.
that's what he hits for, right? He hits for 500,000 basically.
Basically, yeah.
16 to 1, 60,000, 30 times the 16. Yeah, 480,000, give or take.
All right. So now, as Trotter and Vicky and Looney are chatting, you hear the horse in the stall that's next to them. It starts neighing and making a lot of commotion. Looney looks at it and says to Trotter, "Well, whatever you do, don't bet on that horse." And he says, "There's something wrong with its eyes. It's blind or something." So now Trotter's going to go and take a look. But I want to ask you, Steve, what is it that Looney sees in that horse's eyes that he's clearly not identifying correctly?
It's hard to know, actually, because when they do go in the stall,
yes,
and you do get the headshot of Hot to Trot and the pan to his eye, I mean, there's nothing more expressive on a horse than their eye, and there's nothing more important. And I mean, he essentially winks at Trotter.
Yep.
That is clear. But there's also a beautiful clarity of that shot of his eye. So I have no idea. But the beauty of the exchange is that Trotter knows that he's got to go in the opposite direction. That if Looney says, "Don't bet on that one,"
yes,
I'm betting on this one. And that's also part of the introduction to the end, because he knows what advice to ignore and what instinct to trust. And that's why at the end when he says, "I knew it," he said, "I knew it. I knew it." And you do. When you look at PPs, depending on, everybody's got their own habit and practice in terms of how you make your selections, but there's moments where you just know. And you look at something. Sometimes a horse jumps off the page at you. I say, looks like a beach ball, and you say to yourself, "I knew it. I absolutely knew this horse." Especially if it's a horse that is a price that is not easily identified as a win candidate, and yet you identified it as a win candidate. Mm-hmm. That's the greatest feeling in the world. That's why racing. That's why it can't be beat.
Has a horse ever winked at you?
No, not necessarily winked at me.
Yeah.
Horses will look at you. There's certainly famous stories. Are very friendly with Mrs. Weber, Charlotte Weber of Live Oak Plantation, and the story of the horse she paid $1.3 million for, that she named 1.3 carats, that winked in the sales ring, going into the sales ring.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and Charlotte ended up buying that horse for $1.3 million. Now, of course, she's the heir to the Campbell Soup fortune, so it's a little easier for her than you or I. I mean, if a horse winks at me, I'm not able to pay more than about 30, maybe 40,000 for one of our partnerships. But no, but horses will do that. They will, the same way that like a cat will slow blink at you. One of these.
Oh yeah.
The cat's saying something.
There's a connection that's happening here. There's something else that's going on that the mere mortals, no one else can understand this, but we have this thing.
It's nonverbal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
And so now what Trotter is going to do is, as you've explained everything now, right? You've explained, he said the horse kind of comes out of almost like the mist when it appears and it stares at Trotter and winks at him, and then he knows. Actually, it winks at him, and then he looks at the name, and the name is Hot to Trot, and it's like, okay, that's everything I need to. I have all the information.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, now I'm off to bet. He introduces Looney to Vicky, and then they head off to go bet that, and then that is the end of the scene. Would you like to hear a little bit of the screenplay version of this that I have, which is very different?
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah, so the last couple of scenes, which would be where in Marty's bar, where it's he tries to convince them to bet it together, and then where Vicky comes and finds him, and this scene, they all happen together as one big scene, and it's all on the rail, and it's very different. All of the characters are hanging around, and when he sees Hot to Trot, it's just going by on the track, and the horse looks at him. And then he decides, oh, that's my horse. But everything else, everything else seems to be very different. There's a lot of just sort of randomness. It's a bit messy when in this version. Like the version that we have in the movie, I think is much better than what I've read.
Interesting. And the moment that precedes Trotter's arrival, it feels like maybe they segmented all those elements because there's that pivotal turning down of Vicky and right ahead of that, ahead of Trotter's arrival, of Looney's arrival.
Well, in this version, he does kiss her, so it's a little different.
Well, that's all right. That's harmless. That's harmless enough.
All right. Well, really, Steve, really, Steve.
I'm gonna give some leeway.
All right. Giving a little leeway. All right. Well, we've done it. We've come to the end here, buddy. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about Let It Ride or anything else?
Just what a great reaction that my audience, the At the Races audience, had. To your visit, it was a sensation, and it opened so many people. Widened the awareness. I think
absolutely. Oh my God,
just fabulous. I mean, I was really tickled at all the. I got texts and I got feedback on social media and emails on how much everybody enjoyed it and how much they then launched into the Jockey Club. And so, being invited to join you like this, I delighted to do it and. I'm so glad. And this all, of course, the linchpin of all of this is the amazing, incredible Dave Hill, who, Dave is the straw that stirs every drink. He's the king of swizzle sticks.
He is a fantastic guest. Oh my God, I was thrilled to have him on, and he was one of the first ones I had. Yet he picked a scene all the way towards the end of the movie, which was perfectly fine. But yeah, he was great, and really, I should be thanking you a lot, Steve, because you really did help me out as far as getting this podcast a lot more known than it was prior to my appearance on your radio show. Which it was like I really appreciate it.
Thank you. That's as nice a compliment as I can receive.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Jockey Club. This episode was hosted and produced by me, Dan Delgado. Special thanks and gratitude to my guest, Steve Bick. At the Races with Steve Bick airs weekdays on Sirius XM, and if you're really interested, there's a link to the hour of his show that I was on in the show description. Our music is from Epidemic Sound. Our cover art is by Sean Labrie. If you enjoyed this episode, and I sincerely hope that you did, well then, you can help the show out by buying me a coffee. This is really a thing, and a couple of you out there have actually done it. Thanks again. If you did, there's a link in the show notes on how to do it. Now, if you're saving up all your pennies to bet on the 4-horse, well, look, man, I understand. You can still support the show by leaving a free 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you may be listening to this. Go ahead. If you're on some other app, take a look. Maybe there's a way for you to review. If you want to contact me, send me an email, dan@moviemaker.com, or I'm on Twitter. It's @_Dan_Delgado. Or even better, I'm on the Repod app, which is a great way to not only to listen to podcasts, but to interact with podcast hosts. You can find it in your app store. Come on by and say hello. This has been Dan Delgado for the Jockey Club. And remember, sometimes you could be walking around lucky and not even know it.
How's the daily double? How's the daily double?